Human design number 29. Been doing this a long time. Yeah. Yep. And the subject is the tribal channels. So we're going to look at the tribe, and we're basically going to look at the 7 tribal channels. There are 7 channels we're going to look at this time around. And so just as a quick overview, there's 3 kinds of circuitry in human design. There's individual, collective, and tribal. Individual circuitry, we did a whole class on, which we discovered is deeply melancholic and all has to do with the individual being alone in the existential world, basically, the individual by themselves. And all of us, no matter what our design, have an individual face or an individual mask, an individual way of being that we can only really be as ourselves. And so one of the conversations I've been having about individual circuitry is how when you're feeling melancholy, contrary to pop culture that says surround yourself with friends and find activities, you actually can only process that melancholy when you're alone. Because when you're alone is when you're actually in your individual self. And that's also where you're the least limited. If you look at where individual circuitry goes, it connects to all 9 centers of the body graph. Which means that truly when you are alone is the only time you are truly able to really be yourself. Now, as soon as you're around somebody, you're going to engage in either tribal or collective circuitry with that person. Collective is how we show strangers. That's how we act to just your general public. Joe and Jane and any gender-neutral version of the name, public. That's who it's going to be. When we connect with them, for instance, random strangers on the internet, that's collective. And we've done some talks on collective too. But the tribe is people who know you. And it's your family, it's your friends, it's your business partners, it's your loved ones, people you're in a relationship with. All relationships become tribal, over time. And it starts to engage this tribal mask. And that's why it's so interesting. It's kind of like you're at a party and you're in your collective mask because there's a lot of strangers at the party. So you're really showing off this collective side of yourself. Then later, a bunch of people leave and it's just you with your friends and the tribal comes out. People, are very different in a tribal situation. I mean, I was watching, it was so interesting to watch. We saw this amazing avant-garde performance yesterday, and our friend's sister was playing, and, she's in her collective persona, and then he comes up with her and starts saying, I'm going to fart in your face, because he's her brother. And that's like a tribal thing. And she's like, God, leave me alone. God, gross. But, you can see the interplay between them. And you can also see how the collective and the tribe battle it out in so many different ways. I mean, we should do a whole week just on the collective versus the tribe, because really each of these kinds of circuitries is opposed. The individual is terrified of the tribe and the collective. The tribe is terrified of the individual and the collective is terrified of the individual and the tribe. They're all terrified of each other. The individual just wants to be themselves, and people who have only individual circuitry are often very feel terrified that they're going to try to be indoctrinated into some tribal religious thing, or they're going to be homogenized by some collective ideals. So much of the work of queer theory and critical theory and stuff like that has been about overcoming tribal conditioning and so on, and indoctrination and overcoming collective. But then, by the same token, the tribe is terrified of both. The tribe hates the individual because the individual won't follow all their rules. And they hate the collective because the collective is basically Walmart coming in, and the tribe is all the mom and pop stores. And the tribe is saying, we're trying to keep our tradition alive, and Walmart is saying, we're trying to raise the quality of life. And neither side wants to admit it, because as much as we hate Walmart, there are advantages to industrialization and mass production that have lowered infant mortality rate and things like this, at the cost of losing traditions. And as much as we love traditions, I mean, here in Santa Fe, where we're so deeply tribal, so many traditions, as much as we love these traditions, they can also be stifling, and they can choke progress. So just at a summary level, the collective is on the side of the future and progress at the cost of humanity and tradition. The tribe is keeping the heart and soul alive of actual humanistic interaction between people, but at the cost of the individual. And the individual doesn't want to have anything to do with any of it. They just want to be left alone to live their lives as themselves. So today we're looking at the tribe. There are 7 tribal channels, and they're split into different groups. So we're going to talk about the defense circuit, And we'll talk about the ego circuit, which is split into the stream of sensitivity and the stream of instinct. And then we'll talk about the channel of money. Because the other thing about the tribe is that the tribe is deeply material. It's about resources. It's about money. Like, what are some of the things the tribe is about? Does anyone have associations? See, do you have associations with the tribe? Like, what do you think of tribal in general?
Oh, like us versus them.
Yeah, us versus them. That's good. Us versus them is so tribal. I don't want to get political, but our current president has a tribal. Actually, has 2 tribal channels and is deeply tribal, very us versus them, and he's like a mob boss. He's on Gate 45. I don't want to get political, but anyway. Okay, any other associations with the tribe? Michael, do you have any?
Social contracts.
Social contract. That's what you were saying earlier too. Yeah, social contract. And what
pledges and promises and
promises? Would you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Thanksgiving, right? People go home and there's like the expectation that you'll go home and that you'll perform a certain role in your family or that you'll show up.
Yeah, exactly. You're supposed to be there. Support is a big keynote for the tribe. And so as we go through these 7 channels, you can think about how each of them is a different kind of support. Some is emotional support, some is material support. And it also changes things in perspective. Like, again, I'm not going to be political, but you can see somebody who basically acts like a mob boss. You can see like a mob boss kind of figure, or even like, I just watched the Irishman, and we were talking about that. And I was talking to my friend earlier about these mafia movies, mafia, family, right? And that's so deeply tribal. And on the one hand, you could say they're killers and they're doing all these bad things, but that's also the collective's fear of the tribe, and that's also the individual's fear of the tribe. Because the individual is afraid of the tribe because the tribe, there's more of them, and they can come at you with pitchforks. And the collective's afraid of the tribe because the collective tries to equalize everything and create equal rights for everyone. And the tribe is super exclusive. It's us versus them. Like you said, you're either part of the family or you're not. And so the tribe is a very cliquey thing. Okay, some more associations I have with the tribe. The tribe is very much tactile. It's about touch. Think about how many handshakes there are in business, how physical touch is such an aspect of it. Think about how much hugging there is. Can someone get the door? Think about how much there's physical interaction that is the foundation of tribal support. Welcome. Hi. Come join. You can have a seat. Yeah, and so touch, and then also smell. And smell is another key aspect of the tribe, where you can see how bigotry is seated in tribalism. That the collective doesn't have any concept of bigotry because the collective is all about everyone's equal, and the individual doesn't have any concept of bigotry because the individual is all about, hey, we're each free to be you and me. We're each being ourselves as individuals. The tribe is the one that says, look, we have our customs, they have their customs, and their customs are bad, and our customs are good. And so the tribe is, so you can think about how the tribe is where we get racism, it's where we get bigotry, it's where we get all of these really negative things that have to do with, what's that?
It's conditional.
Yeah, it's very conditional. It's also all about fairness. The concept of fairness comes from the tribe. The collective has no sense of fairness because for the collective, fairness is everybody gets the same. For the tribe, fairness is Joey didn't work as hard as Janie, so Joey gets the bad piece of meat and Janie gets the good piece of meat. And that's the tribe. The tribe is yeah, it's all about, yeah, exactly. And it's like playing favorites and all the stuff you see in families. Every family has a golden child and a black sheep and all this family drama. All the Freudian stuff is in the tribe, the whole Oedipal imbroglio and all that. Okay, so to start with, we're going to look at the defense circuit. So I posted these pictures on the website. I wish I could show the images here, but if you want to get a visual representation, they're on the Facebook invite for this. Oh, and I also posted a quote there, and it's by Jakub Stritezky, who's a human design practitioner, and he's talking about the keynote of support. And it's something we can think about as we go through each one of these channels. Does it have to do with support, and where does it have to do with need? Because these are very strong key terms for the tribe. And so Jakub Stritezky says, every tribal activation has a potential to support. For example, a person with activated gate 19, like you, Mike, can support others in getting what they need. Because that's the gate of wanting. It's the gate of wanting in the root. And it can support others in getting what they need, and in turn, it can be supported by them in getting their own needs met. Tribal support is a two-way street. There can be a lot of bad blood if one supports and doesn't get supported back. So again, this notion of fairness. It's not like the collective, which is done in the spirit of contributing something for all time, so it has a Wikipedia page, and anyone with internet access, the ultimate collective invention, can access it. With tribe, it's not. It's all about fairness. It's all about meritocracy, stuff like that, these words we've been using. So the first one we're going to talk about is the channel 59.6. And I'd love for people to read some of these channels if they'd like to. You read your own? Okay. Come on up. Daniel Blue, ladies and gentlemen. Founding member of the High Desert Human Design. All right, and I am recording, so if you stand kind of generally in front of it.
This is the most complex gate.
Oh, so the left page is about gate, is it gate 6? And there's 2 gates.
What am I reading, Jonah?
Gate 6, 59. So these are the 2 gates, and this is about the channel. So I would just read both of them.
So
this is for gate 6.
Both of these paragraphs?
Yeah, exactly. So these are the 2 gates that make up that channel. Gate 6 and gate 59. So gate 6 is the most complex.
This is the most complex gate of the solar plexus, and the most difficult in terms of finding the awareness within the wave. Not only is it a powerful motor with the energy for producing life itself, but it also contains the awareness possibilities of all 3 streams of emotional awareness: feeling, emoting, and sensitivity. Where the 50th gate is the awareness of our personal defense reflex, conflict is our evolved genetic defense reflex. Gate 6 is the gate of conflict. There is no survival for humanity unless it continues to reproduce. From the perspective of our genes, this is our only purpose: to maintain and continue the genetic pool. In our biology, the 6th gate is associated with our pH balance. It is our pH that keeps our outside outside and our inside inside. It establishes the boundary of the body. Throughout most of our history, this has been a mechanical process. The possibility of awareness in this gate could transform the nature of all humanity's intimacy. Who is in awareness? Who is in and who is out? Who can penetrate or be penetrated is the work of this gate. However, as an energy, and this is its general state, it always confines intimacy to a hope and pain cycle. Should I read the numbers?
So I'll just explain for a second. So there's each channel is made up of 2 gates, and you can stand here with me. And so that was gate 6, which is 1/2 of the channel of mating, which is a design focused on reproduction. So part of the tribal circuitry is the reproduction of the human species. And I was talking about this channel before about how it's basically there to make sure we will reproduce more human beings, no matter what. So in a way, this channel together can actually be, it can be incredibly open to the other, but it also decides when it is open or not. It decides when the intimacy is there or not. So there's gate 6, the gate of conflict, with gate 59, the gate of dispersion. So now we're going to read gate 59, and then I'll talk a little bit generally about the channel, and if you have any comments about the channel as well, as you see it.
It is through this... Go ahead.
Oh, is 59 in the sacral?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Dispersion. It is through this gate that our sexual types are defined. This is the sacral power to be able to break down barriers. When the possibility of bonding and the fuel of expressed sexuality are connected, defined, we have the channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction. Here is the dynamic power of the sex drive. With this channel, when this channel is defined, all lovemaking can result in fertilization. This is the most intimate of all 3 social channels. The other 2 are openness, 1222, and community, 3740. It also carries a different meaning when it connects together people who are not lovers. This is a channel of intimacy, the need for deep connection to others, and the resulting fertility can be applied to projects and careers and is not limited to reproduction, though that is its primary function. It is also an energy which can be confusing to others. The second and fourth lines below are often assumed to be sexual, when they are obviously not, leading to conflicts and all sorts of projection. Cool.
Yeah, showing some of the complexity there where, it can give the wrong signal sometimes. And so if you have any comments about the channel, I'll just do a few quick ones because we have a lot of channels to get through. This is 1 out of 7, but like a few of my quick comments. So one, thinking with the keynote support. Well, this is obviously support through intimacy and support through sexual intimacy in particular. And then the other keynote of the tribe is need, people having their sexual needs met. I've done human design readings for people where one of them has the channel and the other doesn't. And the one who doesn't have it is frustrated that they don't get to choose when to have sex or not. They don't get to choose when the intimacy is there or not. The one who has this channel dominates that part of that tribal bond and basically decides. Now, a few other things about it. So Ra mentions it's really hard to know when it gets emotional clarity. It's really a difficult one. Well, for one thing, its emotional clarity is related to touch. So my advice for people who have this channel is when they're not getting clarity, when they want to touch somebody, touch their shoulder, touch their hand, shake hands with the person you might be a business partner with, or touch them on the shoulder, or have some sort of physical touch to get that clarity about them. However, these people can also be very, very sensitive to touch, and it can actually be really damaging for them to be touched when they don't want to. I know someone who has this who hates to be hugged or massaged or anything when it's not welcome. It's very sensitive. No, when they have this channel, they have this whole channel. Now, that can be for anybody. You can have sixth tone touch in your cognition, for instance, and you can also be very sensitive to touch. But people who have this channel, they get a lot of information through touch, so it can be tricky. The other thing is I'll say it's nicknamed the aura cutter because they're really good at breaking down people's defenses. And then my usual joke about this, which is something that Ra talks about, is by pairing this channel with 5027 on the other side. So if you're looking at the body graph, on your right will be the 59-6, the channel of mating. On the left will be the 5027, the channel of preservation. And I was talking about this at our last, at the one where we really went into the channels a bit, about how different these are. And I'll just do a really short version of it here so we can move along. But basically, the 59-6 is like the channel of the father, where it needs to reproduce more. It needs to impregnate and reproduce. And it doesn't raise the kids. It doesn't actually stick around to raise the kids. The 5027 is like the channel of mothering. It's called the channel of preservation. And it's all about taking care of things and raising them. And so there's this really interesting opposition where the 59-6 is actually designed to not discriminate. Someone could be a total jerk, but it's designed to break through their defenses and form intimate bonds with that person. No matter how bad they are. They could be racist, they could be bigoted, they could be sexist, whatever. It's designed, if it wants to anyway, to say, hey, let's take a step back, come on, let's figure this out, and bond with that person. On the other hand, the 5027, which is also tribal, we'll get to in a moment, is there to be the most discriminating channel possible, because think about how much you discriminate when you're raising your kid. When you're raising a kid, you care what they eat, what they read, what they see, who they spend time with, when they go to bed, when they wake up, what they wear, what they think. You're on guard for bad thoughts that you try to convince them not to think about. I mean, it's insane the level of scrutiny and judgment that goes into child raising. And again, that's the other half of the defense circuit. If you don't want them to die, you want to make sure they look both ways before they cross the street. So you're super vigilant they look both ways. If you're having a one-night stand, I'm not even going to want to say it, but if you're trying to reproduce, you don't care if that person looks both ways before crossing the street. You're just trying to reproduce. So anyway, I'm not trying to single you out of that. Okay, so would anyone like to read about the 59-6? Oh, sorry, we just did that one. The 5027. I don't think anyone here has it, do they?
How do you know whether that's being active by the your chart?
It's the channels that are colored in.
Okay.
Yeah. So no projector will have either of these because only generators can have these channels because they're sacral channels. So everyone who has it is automatically a generator or manifesting generator. half of it. Yeah, I have half of the channel preservation too. Well, then I'll just read about it for a minute. So when I see people out at the 5027, I always know they're going to be very responsible. It's a channel of preservation, a design of custodianship. These are people who can take care of things that you give them. They borrow your car, the car is going to come back in great shape. They house sit for you. They're very trustworthy people. The 59-6 is the kind of person you want as your therapist because they'll break down all your defenses and get you to open up. But the 50-27 is the person you want to caretake. They're the caretakers. They're the preservationists. So the body that the 6th gate builds out of intimacy, the 50th gate guards and maintains. So again, this 59-6 is building new bodies. It's literally creating new bodies. It's not guarding them. It's not protecting them. It's not defending them. It's not maintaining them. It's not making sure they're well fed. It's just creating them. So these are the two sides of it. So the body that the 6th gate builds out of intimacy, the 50th gate guards and maintains. This is the gate of values. It is the gate of tribal law. Think about that. This is where the law is to come down. If one person in the couple has the 59-6 and the other has the 50-27, there's going to be a good cop, bad cop thing. The 59-6 is the good cop, who's always like, well, yeah, I know you hit the kid at school, but come on, you don't really want to do that, do you? And then the 50-27 is, this is the law of the house, and you will not get your dinner tonight and go to bed without, that's the difference between them. Which is really funny that these are actually associated. The good cop, 59-6, is kind of associated with fathering, which is always trying to wheel and deal and smooth things over. And the 50-27, go to bed without your dinner is actually considered with mothering. But of course, fathering and mothering have no gender connotation whatsoever. So, and that's the other thing that's really special about human design is you realize that it says nothing about gender. And people who don't identify with a gender, anything like that, is absolutely included within human design. There's literally nothing about gender in all of human design. It's a pretty incredible system to show our extreme differentiation and our extreme ability to take on any number of roles without having any sort of value attributed to gender whatsoever. So the gate of tribal law, that's gate 50. It's the awareness possibility of the 3 streams of the splenic awareness. This is the spleen. So it's the awareness of taste, intuition, and instinct, and the key to our well-being. It is at the heart of our personal immunity, because the spleen is associated with the immune system. So again, when you look at the difference between the solar plexus and all of its emotional stuff and intimacy and bonding and food and sex and all of these things, and the other side, the spleen, which is our immune system and literally survival. Is there anything less sexy than survival? It's so interesting to see how opposite the spleen is from the solar plexus. Solar plexus being the pleasure and pain center, the spleen being the survival center. The defense circuit is our sexual circuit, but on this side, we're looking at the personal immunity and the foundation of our personal defense system and the core of the tribal process. Each intimacy that results in birth demands that the offspring of the union are nurtured into adulthood, which is gate 27, and guided by values, gate 50. So again, we have gate 27, nourishment, which is making sure that the kid wears a warm enough coat in the snow. And then we have gate 50, which is values, which is making sure the kid, opens the door for somebody or something like that. These things, respecting elders and don't be selfish and all of these tribal rules that are kind of hammered into us. It's this gate which establishes the rules of caring. The other interesting thing is that the splenic side is all about caring. The emotional side is all about sexuality, and they are so very different. They're so different. To care about someone and to want to have sex with that person are not related at all. They're completely different things. And sometimes you have sex with people you don't care about. Sometimes you care about someone you don't. They're different. They're really different from each other. Coming out of our most ancient awareness, it is a fundamental ingredient of human survival. Each of the gates of the splenic center have an underlying fear. Gate 50 is the fear of responsibility. Now, when someone has the whole channel, they're going to feel pretty good about their ability to be responsible. When you have gate 50 in an undefined center, like I do, then it comes out as a fear of responsibility. And I have noticed that too. It's, It's the fear, what will I do if I have to take on this responsibility? I don't want that responsibility. Oh, you're going to give me a car, great, but now I have to take care of the car. I have to take it to the mechanic. You know, it's like, it's all of this like added responsibility and the fear of having to be responsible, to be held liable for that, not wanting to take it on. Now, on the other end of the channel, the harmonic is gate 27, the gate of caring or nourishment. And we see this is where we have things like altruism and compassion and, you know, a lot of really good things. This is kind of like a Mother Teresa vibe a little bit, you know. So the tribe has really good stuff too. I don't want to just knock on the tribe when I say, you know, it's where we get the edible complex and, you know, things like that. There's some really good parts. Without nourishment and caring, nothing can survive, particularly a human being who is so vulnerable for so many years. Gate 27 is the mirror of the pure sexuality of the 59th gate. This is a gate that is both a fuel and an expression of sexuality through definition, because it's a sacral gate. All sacral has something to do with, you know, the sacral center is the testes in men and the ovaries in women. So obviously it has to do with fertility. The drive to nourish is also in its polarity, the drive to be nourished and to be cared for. This need to be cared for, driven at the sacral level, can lead to all kinds of sexual health problems. If it's accompanied by a lack of values from the harmonic gate 50, serious problems are possible. When the possibility of values and the expression of caring come together, we have the channel of preservation, those who preserve and protect. This is the gate of compassion, the power to care for the weak, the sick, and the young, and can be impressively altruistic in its manifestation. So, you know, it's people who have one or both of these channels, gates to make up the channel, tend to be the ones who really care that others' needs are being met and are very supportive of others' needs. Okay, so together, those two make up the defense circuit. Now, one thing I'll say is that the defense circuit is second to the format channels in terms of strength. That means it's very, very strong. When people have the defense circuit, not only do they have this ability, but they impart it on others through conditioning. So when Daniel's hanging out with us, he makes all of us have an easier time breaking down each other's barriers and experiencing intimacy with each other, if he's open to that. On the other side of it, if he's closed off to that, then everyone's going to be very hesitant and careful and not want to open up and allow them so others to really see what's going on with them and so on. So you can see that whoever possesses these channels, unlike certain other channels that don't really make a blip in the collective aura of the room, these channels have a very strong impact on the room. And you'll see that also with that 59.6 and also with 50.27, where somebody has that channel and everyone's like worried that they're going to break something, or they're like dusting things, or they're being careful to put a coaster under the glass or something like that, because they're trying to preserve everything. They're just conditioned to preserve it. All right, we're going to move on to the ego circuit. Would someone with a 1949 like to read about it? Okay. Yay. So before we start, because again, it's nice to give these context, would you... it's tribal.
Should we read the Chayton Parkin one? That one's a bit more accessible.
Okay, go for it. Yeah. Yeah, and so, because we're reading from the Book of Letters. We're reading from the Book of Letters, A Guide to Human Design Analysis Based on the Human Design System by Ra Uru Hu, also known as the White Book. The Black Book is a little more obtuse. And my copy of the Black Book's gone missing. I don't know. It's a weird book. It's hard to find.
Although this one it does use a bunch of like U's, so it is like maybe this one's more like encyclopedic. And this one's
it's fine. You can do that one.
Do that both at the same time.
There you go, circuit. The circuit. You just start reading. Okay. We're not going to do it. Well, okay, but before we talk about it, let's give a little bit of context. So this is a channel that Michael has. This is a channel that connects the root to the solar plexus, and it's part of the stream of sensitivity. It's called a design of sensitivity, so it's very sensitive. And you've talked a little bit. Can you explain how you describe sensitivity? Because it's different than I've understood it in the past.
It's like, well, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like, it has a lot to do with nature, I find, and it's like details in the natural world you become really sensitive to, but then you also become sensorially sensitive with the 1949.
Like sensitive to certain sounds or certain...
Oh,
well, are things grating to it?
I tell you what, one time when I went in for surgery, they dosed me up with morphine. They had to use 3 times as much morphine as normal, and it still didn't have
the desired effect. And I found out then that my literal nerve endings are like much, much wider than they should be. So it's like morphine works by filling up the cup of the nerve ending, and I have abnormally large cups. So they can just pour the morphine in, and it doesn't do...
So you're abnormally sensitive, you
Yeah.
mean, and that no matter how much they try to dull your senses,
Yes.
they're like 3 times more than normal dulling, and you're still highly sensitive. Yeah, and a few other associations I have it. It's where all jealousy comes from. It's a really interesting one. And people who have channels but don't experience themselves as, they're not in touch with that aspect of it, or they're like, I don't have that, typically are bringing it out in others. Well, okay, but I'm just saying, like, for instance, I know people who have the channel competition, which is the 5125, who are like, I'm the least competitive person you ever meet, but people are always cutting in front of me. Yeah. And so they're like bringing out competition, you know what I mean? They're bringing out competition in others, and they're like being subversively competitive. And so one interesting thing, which I noticed with Michael, which we talked about before, is bringing out jealousy in others when they don't normally experience jealousy.
Oh, yeah.
And part of it is that one half of this gate, gate 19, is the gate of flirting. Oh, you have that one. You know you have that. Okay, sorry, you're checking. I know you have that gate. I don't have to look at your body graph to know you have that gate. But no, so there's the gate of flirting. And then gate 49 on the other end is basically a gate that comes in and determines who of all the people who are flirting it wants to possess and take ownership of in a very possessive, jealous way. And it basically says, okay, your flirting has won me over. Now I will take you under my wing. I will provide for you. I will buy things for you. I will nourish you. I will feed you. I will bathe you. I will clothe you. You're not going to flirt with anybody but me. And that's where the jealousy comes from. And, you know, it's tricky because the 19 wants to keep flirting. You know, it just wants to see what other offers it gets, see what other suitors come along, you know, see what other material resources it can produce through its flirtation.
Who deserves that partner? That's definitely, I mean, I do have that script running in my head all the time. If I meet a couple, like, without trying to, I evaluate, like, oh, this person's
undeserving of that person. This person deserves better, or this person doesn't deserve how good
it's really, yeah, it's easy to slip into that.
Yeah, and so just a little context, then you can read it, but it's basically, gate 19, the gate of wanting, it's all about flirtation. Its energy mechanic is the need for food access. How do you get food? You flirt. You flirt for survival to get food. You know, you get the support you need through flirting, through charming the other. And it says the energy to need or not. Because it takes a lot of energy to need something. To be needy is not just like, I have no energy, I need something. It's like, no, it takes energy. You see those people out there with the signs who say you need the money? That takes a lot of energy. You know, they need the fuel for that. Because again, this is in the root, so it's a fuel gate. On the other end of it is the 49. The awareness of what is needed or not is an awareness center. And the awareness potential of food discrimination. So without further ado, if you'd like to read. Yes. Yeah.
1949, the channel of sensitivity, from the root to the emotions. Compassionate, tactile, sensual, and super sensitive, you naturally feel everyone's wants, needs, and emotions and know how to meet them. This tends to result in a hands-on approach to life and everything you do. Your emotions are so sensitive that you could wear a blindfold and earplugs and still detect what everyone was feeling around you. Nothing gets past your inbuilt feelings antenna, bringing goose pimples to your skin and tears to your eyes. You can watch the television news and become distressed by the world's troubles. Yes, you can be that sensitive, but this also makes you compassionate, fair, and supportive of others. Pressure from the root means you feel obliged to reach out, whether requested or not, to assist, encourage, or soothe. This makes you a tower of strength, one of life's pillars holding up the community temple where you also happen to have organized an event to bring everyone together. A sense of community is important to you in this harsh, insensitive world, so you foster unity and togetherness. Your test is to balance your own needs with the needs of others. Oh, I also cry when watching Planet Earth a lot. Or similar shows.
You don't cry watching Game of Thrones.
No.
Cry on the way back from Game of Thrones because we didn't like Sin Spring.
What's that? Oh, yeah, right. Whoa.
Sensitive to the people, but not
True.
sensitive to the creatures, critters.
When this thing is effective and you've honored your own space, it's a win-win situation. The 1949 puts you and everyone else back on track. But you'll need emotional clarity before knowing what projects and people to attach to. You've also got to appreciate that you'll be wounded by the slightest criticism. Sometimes you need to just roll up like a hedgehog and wait for the harsh traffic to pass by. Your sensitivity is like a magnet of its own, radiating its unique quality with an almost seductive pull. People feel safe in your company. In relationships, the 1949 brings a sensuality which seeks to close contact with another and needs to be tactile. The lightest brushing of skin holds its own electricity. That's why your selective touch can make you a natural healer, masseur, or Reiki specialist. It probably explains why you also like to hold hands and prefer handshake deals, conducting calm business meetings over food, breaking bread together. You also have an innate affinity with animals. Everyone and everything comes to appreciate your sensitivity. I got a couple more thoughts on that.
Okay, go for it, please.
Well, so one thing is like, I'm super sensitive to if you're like, to the ritual of the night, like even cheersing over alcohol. But what really fucks me up is if people do psychedelics and don't formalize it, then I just like can't stand it. I get so sensitive to that because I need what is it? I don't know. The conducting calm business meetings, yeah, the ritual, the breaking bread. There has to be the breaking bread element in the beginning of the trip, and that doesn't have to be a psychedelic trip. It can just be people agreeing to meet somewhere and sharing a glass of water, you know? It's all about the introduction. And then the Reiki thing, I did spontaneously start doing Reiki on myself with no training or whatever, just because I like paid a lot of attention to really specific areas of my body, and I was able to do some weird shit.
Wait, could you talk about the connection to animals? Because there's 3 channels even designed to connect to animals.
Oh yeah.
To mammals.
It's the beast taming channel. So it's just like I feel like in my life it's just like syncing with the animal and not relating to it as a person, but sort of like becoming whatever animal that is when you're around it a little bit. But this is also a channel that we're losing later in our evolution, right? So we're going to lose the ability to domesticate animals.
Dog on my birthday.
Yes.
Yeah, you can just stand here for a minute. Stand here. You're not going anywhere. Yeah. So as far as the animals, there's 3 different ways that we connect to animals, and one is through logic, which is like training animals, like you train animals to do tricks. One is individual, which you just like a person and the animal, the individual, not tribal connection though, but like almost like the melancholy of the animal. Like I think of like the movie Antichrist or something that like shows the animalism in its kind of stark individuality and melancholy. And then this is the only tribal way of connecting to the animals, so it actually carries a lot. It's very overloaded. This channel not only carries, as you said, beast taming and domestication, it's also the butcher's table.
Oh, yeah.
It's also how we have a contract. And again, bringing back the idea of tribal contracts, we have what's that? And ritual. We have ritual and contract with other mammals, and this is going away. This is going away very soon in our mutative evolutionary process. It's going to be interesting to see how we've had this contract for countless tens of thousands of years, and it's about to go away. And well, because we're mutating. So what's happened? There's particular areas that are being mutated. So this channel is actually breaking. It's no longer going to be a channel. It's going to disconnect. And because each of these gates correlates to codons in our DNA, and there's certain key mutations that have happened in the history of humanity, and that's a topic for a different night. We'll probably have to do a topic for the coming changes in our future evolutionary mutation. But just as an example, around 90,000 years ago, gate 12, which controls the larynx, mutated, and we had the dropping of the larynx. So we know that little babies who actually experience this mutation as a sort of vestigial process, when they're born, they can breathe and swallow at the same time. And they lose that ability in order to gain language. And this is part of the dropping of the larynx, which allowed us, if you ever watched like an x-ray of an opera singer or something, you'll see the contortions the larynx goes into to make the language that we're all using when we speak to each other. And it's incredible, it's fascinating, and that was a mutation that occurred around 90,000 years ago. This is a mutation which has led to the rise of prostate cancer and is also related to the rise of autism, or what we call autism now, which is very poorly understood.
Which mutation is?
This one right here, in this particular 1949. And it's because it has to do with the mutation of the solar plexus to a pure awareness center. Right now it's doing double duty. It started as a pure motor center. And so it started as a motor, meaning it only guided human action with no awareness whatsoever. humans had sex with each other, for instance, to reproduce without having any awareness whatsoever of what was happening. They didn't even know that sex caused babies at a certain point in history. I mean, think about that. Go back to cavewoman times. We didn't really know, right? We just had this genetic imperative, and the genetic imperative kept the species alive. And it was like magic. It was like a miracle. Like, what? A baby appeared? That is one thing I do think about, which is how magical it must have seemed that female bodies produced both male and female bodies, and how just incredible that must have seemed. And at a certain point in time, I'm sure people figured out, oh, okay, sex causes this, and that was like probably an epiphany to realize that. But again, it didn't start as a point of awareness. There was no awareness about even hunger. It was just a mechanical response. It was hunger, eating, and that awareness developed slowly, and then the motor is actually leaving it behind. And people talk about stuff like peace on earth and the end of war. That's only possible when the solar plexus is no longer a motor, because as long as we're emotionally motivated to do things, there's going to be conflict and war and all this stuff. So part of the mutation happening in this channel is related to people who are basically mutative before the awareness center is developed. So you have people who we diagnose with autism, who are, they're experiencing this genetic mutation, but there's nothing yet to fill. There's no new awareness to fill the gap. They're almost mutating too soon before the awareness center is developed. And there's a lot of scientific foundation for this too. If you look into it, some of the most tremendous cellular activity in terms of genetic mutation happens in the gut. People talk a lot about the gut mind, and the gut brain, and stuff like that. So,
the autism thing relates to this sensory sensitivity thing.
The what?
How autism is associated with sensory sensitivity.
Yeah, right. Highly sensitive, persons and people who experience,
And ritual as well.
Right.
Oh,
the repetitive.
yes.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Stimming, self-stimming, and stimming
Yes.
ritual, and it's really a good point. So the 1949, one of the most we gotta tear through the last four, but just to leave it on 1949. The last thing I'll say about it is that thank you, Michael. Thanks, Mike. So the last thing I'll say is that it's interesting that animals so far, mammals have been in the social contract where we protect and feed them in exchange for culling the herd. Culling the herd means that we get to kill a certain number of them, and they allow us to do that because they're willing to be domesticated, basically, that mammals are willing to be domesticated. Well, this mutation is going to change our ability to domesticate animals. So I'm not saying that it'll happen all at once. I'm not saying that you wake up one day and all the cows will be revolting, but in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, there may not be domesticated farming of mammals as there is now. And this is also, by the way, the future evolution is going to be completely vegan. That animal products are not going to be digestible by future peoples as this.
Oh my god, I ate an
progression
Impossible
happens.
burger and it made me sick as a dog.
Yeah, well, that's because you have the most archaic cave person dietary regimen as we've gone over. You have the first color. It's like the oldest vestige of you should probably eat raw meat, in fact, or just barely cooked, just meat cooked on a fire on a stick. You're fine. You're great. Okay. Does anyone here no one here has a 3740? Do they? No, I guess not. It's funny. It's one of the most common ones, and I actually don't know a lot of people who have it. Do you? Well, would one of you? So okay, if either of you want to read it, I'll give a little context of it, and then you can read it. Whoever would like to can read it once I give a little bit of context.
Where is it from into?
It's from the ego, gate 40 in the ego, to gate 37 in the solar plexus. Okay.
Oh, Miriam's got it.
Well, if you'd like to read, then you're welcome to. Or okay. So let's find it here. So what's in here too? So 3740. I'll just give a little bit of context, and thank you. Wait, first, is it okay if it goes on YouTube? Because I'm streaming YouTube. Okay. Let's see. Okay.
So many people watch that.
No, it's like 8. It's like 8 people. It's not that many actually. But okay, just to give a little bit of context, and then you can read this one. So to give a little bit of context of it, this is a really interesting one because it connects to the ego, and the ego is the center for making promises. And so this has a lot to do with the bargain. What is the bargain? And that this 3740 is all about any sort of bargain, like the 9-to-5 work week is a bargain. Any sort of, vacation time is a bargain. Like, what is my time that I give in support to others, and what is the time that I take for myself? And it really makes sense when you realize that gate 37, the gate of the family, the gate of friendship, gate 40, the gate of aloneness. This is what happens when you create a channel out of aloneness and family together. What happens is it creates a bargain. It makes an agreement. I get to have my alone time. You don't get to have all my time. You get 40 hours of my week, and then the family gets however many hours of my week or whatever. But I get to have a certain amount of aloneness. Now, the one thing I want to say really quick about this is that this channel is also changing, because in 2027, we're changing 400 years of, this is a great cycle because of the precession of the equinoxes. For the last 400 years or so, we've had the 3740 activated as a global theme, as part of a global cycle. And so this is where we get all the contracts, the social contract, all of the social bonds, the social promises. This is where we get, Red Cross and all the social aid programs. And this is where we get all of this idea that if you contribute to society, society gives back to you. And that's part of the agreement, and it's part of the contract. And that's all going away. So the channel is the channel of community. It's a design of a part seeking a whole. And maybe you can read, you're welcome to read either of these that you want, but this is the Chetan Parkin book, which is like a little bit more.
English?
Yeah, it's just a little more, it's a little less technical.
I'm doing 3740, right?
Yes. That is the channel.
Great. All right. From the emotions to the heart. Your word is your bond, and you wish to live in a community called trust and fairness, viewing the world as a large family. As you seek purpose in life, you need like-minded allies who support your goals. You build bonds on the foundations of trust and honesty, where everyone pitches in and pulls their weight. These values underpin all your relationships and associations. This channel is tribal, and you need the right company if fulfillment and success are to be achieved. If you fall in with the wrong people, life tends to go pear-shaped. I don't know what that means. But, your aim is to bring everybody onto the same page, using the same values, desires, and emotions to build a strong, interconnected family, marriage, business, or community. You are the parent whose heart swells when everyone gathers together, or a family dinner, or when a marriage is built on a mutual sense of give and take. Some people might describe you as touchy-feely because you are naturally tactile, shaking hands, sharing hugs, and throwing arms around friends and family, being inclusive. You also have a distinctive winning smile, a smile which literally wins people over, bringing reassurance and making everyone feel included. It wins friends and influences people. You need to know you can trust the people around you. That's why you prefer a handshake deal before a written contract. That's similar. Okay. You can also look the person in the eye and sense their sincerity. You prefer a friendly discussion over dinner to an austerity of a boardroom. So it's interesting they're saying similar. Yeah. I mean, they're all.
It's like this kind of casual, informal, like getting to know who somebody really is in the tribal way, not in this like impersonal, collective way. Like, who are you really? Let's connect. Let's see what's about.
Okay.
Let's break bread.
Okay. In fact, you seek to make friends with the people you work or conduct business with, forever seeking true allies. You have zero tolerance for anyone who reneges on a deal, sometimes banishing them from your life. Yeah, that's real.
Don't break your promise to me.
If anyone lets you down, you can freeze them out. You're someone of your word and expect others to be the same. People like you are the glue for communities and can often be found rallying the troops at the local church, village hall, town hall, or sports club. When projects run like clockwork and people are working and laughing together, your nature sings. You, in turn, then bring reliance, honesty, and stability, which is warming in today's world.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so again, this is another, I do a lot of couples readings, and I've also done this. Oftentimes, you'll find in couples where one person has the whole channel and the other has half the channel. That's where there's a conflict, and that's where there's a compromise. When one person has the whole 3740 and the other has half that channel, the one with half that channel goes, "Well, I don't think it's fair." And I say, "Well, you don't get to choose what's fair because the 3740 gets to decide what is fair." The 3740 in a workplace, for instance, you set the standard for what is fair. And you'll say, no, don't work so hard. You've been really breaking your back on this. And you'll say to somebody else, come on, really? Come on, pick it up. Because it's basically making sure that everybody is chipping in, but nobody's working too hard. We're all sharing the weight. We're all in it together. It's all about those bargains. There's other associations too. I mean, it's part of the same stream of sensitivity we looked at with 1949. This is the sexual tribal stream. Which is funny because the tribe is actually not that sexual compared to the collective, which is all about having experiences and all those Vogue magazine articles of how to have amazing sex. That's all collective shit. Tribe doesn't care about that, okay? Tribe is like, the tribal sexuality is like the old couple holding each other's hands. Like, it's just sweet. It's just like a sweet thing. But you do see with the 3740 that the 37 is cuddling and the 40 is the gate of masturbation. So anyway, we'll move on from that. Okay, we have, because it's the gate of aloneness. So it's the balance between the two. It's saying, okay, I'll cuddle with you, but you got to leave me alone a little bit. So, okay, 5432. Does anyone, if no one has this one, maybe we can just get someone to contribute C or MF, if either of you would like to read. Wait, you have that? Wow, this is amazing how fucking tribal we are. This is
lined up in order.
Yeah, we're just going. Would you're welcome to, there's no pressure, but you're welcome to read. No, don't do tribal pressuring. All you can do to a projector is invite them. One of us. Okay, no. No, we don't want to apply tribal pressure. Okay, well, I'm going to talk about the 54. Okay, if you'd like to read it then, enough. And I'll also talk briefly about the 54 as you...
Is this the truck channel?
Pardon? No. That's the 4521. I mean, he might have 54 too. I don't know. I think he is... Yeah, I don't even know. Okay.
I love that you've done Trump's.
Yeah. No, I have. I think he has the experience. Does he have a 35, 36 also? Yeah. Anyway, I do a lot of people's charts. I'm curious to know. But I mostly look at the undefined centers and the not self, because that's how you really get to know people who aren't living their design. You look at all the stuff that they could be, and then you're like, actually, you're all this other stuff that's undefined. All right. So just to give a little context for this one. No. With you, it's fine. So we both have 54. So 54 is a gate of ambition and is known as the marrying maiden. In Capricorn. And one of the things I like about human design coming from an astrology background is in astrology you learn all the different stuff that Capricorn is, for instance, and you learn they're ambitious and they're well-behaved and they're tenacious and they're fighters and they this and that. Well, when you look at human design, you see that one of the gates of Capricorn in human design is gate 38, the fighter. And so people born with that Capricorn placement tend to be real fighters. Another one is gate 10, which you also have, which is about being really well-behaved. These are the best-behaved children you've ever seen. They're super well-behaved. It's treading on the tail of the tiger, is what it's called in the Chinese I Ching, and it basically means people who are smart enough not to step on the tails of tigers. Anyway, you go through these different Capricorn gates, and then you see gate 54, the marrying maiden, which is a story from ancient China about the concubine who became the empress of all of China. How does she do this? She did this by climbing the social ladder, but she did not backstab people and step on their toes and cut in front of them. It's not the channel of competition here. She did it through helping them up first, and then they would help her up. And then she'd help them up, and they'd help her up. And that is the wisdom of gate 54 of the marrying maiden. That's how she went from being a concubine to being the empress of the entire country. Yes?
I've always wondered, is it also that dude that eventually traded a paperclip for a house?
Yes, that is the marrying maiden. The paperclip for the house is the marrying maiden. It's trading up. The only difference is that, I don't know if he helped others while he was doing it. Because 54 helps others, but that's exactly it. It is this. He was also a fourth line. Okay, so we're going to. Fourth line, the theme of trading up. So 5432.
Okay.
the channel of transformation. Oh, a couple other things I'll say about it really quick, and then you can read it. I know people who have this whole channel. One of the things that they do, I obviously as well, I don't know if you've done this, something you might experiment with, it might be fun to try. People I know who've had this whole channel, and this is also Jenna's only channel.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh shit.
I wish she were here.
I wish she was here too.
But what they do, and then you can compare notes.
I'll tell her. Yeah.
What they do is they
We'll talk
often
about
give people makeovers. Like my friend who has this, she will meet somebody who's like really, like, it's funny because now I'll meet people and I'll be like, oh, I wish you knew. I won't say my friend's name, so I don't want to embarrass her if she watches this video, but I'll say, oh, I wish you knew her because you really need a makeover. I don't want to say that, but it's like people who are just kind of like their attitude and their material circumstances, and they're kind of like down in the dumps, and their sense of fashion and their haircut and like all this stuff are just kind of stuck. And then they meet somebody who has this. And so again, thinking of the keynotes of need and support, they need a makeover, and someone who really supports them will give that to them. And that's why it's the channel of transformation. A design of being driven. And this is gate 54, and this is gate 32.
Okay. The channel of transformation, 5432, a design of being driven. Gate 54, the marrying maiden. In the original I Ching, the marrying maiden referred to was based on a legend of a concubine that eventually became the empress of all China. This embodies the idea of rising up, moving up the ladder. This is a gate of drive. Since this gate is a fuel of the ego, and that its inherent meaning is ambition, it can easily be dismissed as a very mundane energy. It may be surprising then to discover that the most mystical line of the 384 of the Ravi Ching is 54-4, enlightenment/endarkenment. It may appear to be an irony, but it is not. Only when one has mastered the instincts to operate on the mundane plane is transformation possible. This gate fuels the drive to transform. In biological terms, it is associated with the body's liquid production. The significance is that through the liquid medium that memory is stored in and transported. This instinctive stream is all about memory. Okay, and now we're going to talk about gate 32, the gate of duration, the gate of continuity. The awareness potential is the instinct to adapt in the now without losing continuity. This is the gate of duration, where all of our instinctive imprinting is rooted. By its nature, it is extremely conservative. Where the sensitivity stream is social and communal, the instinctive stream is social and individual. Rooted in the splenic system, it is first and foremost about individual survival on the material plane. It will not rush to embrace a revolution, but if it succeeds and is established in the general community, then it will instinctively adapt, maintaining its basic nature. This is the potential awareness of what can or cannot be transformed. It is the brake on the drive of the 54. What is transformed and stored as instinctive memory determines the ultimate strength of the ego. Each gate of the splenic center has an underlying fear. Here, it is the fear of failure. It can be a gate of prolonged indecision, the conservative reliance, agonizing over the risks of being driven towards transformation.
Great, thank you for reading it. Yeah. And that's the one that both of us lack. So when we meet people who have that one, we're like,
God, I feel
finally
that.
you give us a break from the drive.
I have it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Then we have the relief. We're so driven, and then we're like, actually, all that ambition doesn't really know what it's ambitioning towards. Yeah. Time for some Dark Souls and Bloodborne. Let's have some wine. Okay, we only have 2 left, so whoever would like to do the last 2, because I know this is kind of a long one. C and William, would you like to read the last 2? Or we have 4426 and the 4521. Which one?
I'll do 4426 because I have that both in my. I have 44 in my design.
Oh, and I have 26.
Yeah.
Let's do it together at the same time. This channel about to finish. Okay.
No, just introduce it.
Oh well, okay. So it's tribal. It's tribal night.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
it's tribal
Y'all
night.
make me so tribal.
Yeah. So the 4426 is the channel of surrender going from gate 44 in the spleen to 26 in the ego, and it's the design of a transmitter. And the way I think about it, the 44 in the spleen is intelligence. It's an intelligence center, and it's cold-blooded. It's in the spleen. The spleen is cold-blooded. Yeah, exactly. And it's very cold. And the 26 in the ego is very hot. The ego is like the hot-blooded animals and just hot in general. Now, me having 26, and others who have 26 here will kind of recognize, it's the ability to sell yourself. It's the ability to get up there and to have a bombastic, it's the Don Draper Mad Men. You have it too, right, MF? Yeah, you have 26 also. It's also the great bullshitter. 26 will tell people, if you're a 26 and you want to tell somebody the truth, tell them the second thing you think to say. Okay? Okay? I'm really dialing up the 26 here. This is fun also because we make the whole channel, so we get to really dial it up. So the 26 is like the raging ego. The 44 is the HR manager who knows how to handle those egos. It's like the agent of all the Hollywood celebrities and stuff who's like, I know how to handle them. You just have to, I know how to please the ego. You just flatter them a little bit, give them a little hint of this, a little of that. And also the 44 knows a lot about who to hire and what they're good for. And it's just very good about that. 44-26 together are really, really good at managing material resources. I know someone who has this channel, I know a couple people who have this channel, who I've talked to about investments. And because I'm compromised, I have half the channel. Probably you have the same experience. If you talk to them, they just override it. I say, I don't know if that's a good investment. They go, it's a good investment. Trust me.
Yeah. 44 knows what's relevant and current. That's very zeitgeisty.
Right.
There you go.
But then not how to tell people I'm not crazy.
Right. You can't sell it unless
you can't sell it. I'm the one who sells it. All right, here's what you want to buy.
These things are great, but
yeah, together you have basically the channel of capitalism. The 3740 is the channel of communism. I didn't really mention that. The 3740 that we looked at before is all about sharing the resources. The 4426 is the channel of capitalism. It's about making money. So it's one of the money streams, along with the 4521.
All right, so this is the channel of entrepreneurial enterprise, design of a transmitter. Where the channel of community is socialist, as we just said, the channel of surrender is capitalist, the instinct and memory to transmit one's ego to the tribe. This is a public channel. This is a gate specifically of memory, instinctive memory, not one that can be called forward, but a memory that operates in the now and is cued by patterns and experience. The alertness of this gate is the alertness to patterns. The possibility of this instinctive memory and its sharpness have no direct access to expression through the throat. It is a mirror of the 37th gate that offers social loyalty and access to the tribal refrigerator in return for the promise of benefits from the ego's willpower. The 44th gate offers individual loyalty and access to its memory resources in return for the ego's strength to assuage its fears. Coming to meet is the gate of the fear of the past. Should I read the 1 through 6?
Now read the other one. 26.
Oh, okay. Just don't go through you don't want to go through the lines.
Yeah, it's okay. Unless you have a line you want to read about. You're a manifester. I can't tell you what to do.
Well, to me, the 6th line is always the most interesting, and that manifests as aloofness. The awareness of patterns and I think that really speaks to the whole fear of the past thing. The awareness of patterns which ensures one's instinctive well-being. Pluto, the awareness of patterns which can bolster in its detriment. The awareness of patterns which can bolster the ego at the expense of the well-being of others. And that's its Earth is the other one.
Yeah.
What's
because each line, so
the opposite of detriment.
So if you're not familiar with this, you can look at each gate, you can look at your line placement there. There's going to be a particular theme or expression of the general theme. And then within that, there will be a positive or a negative, which again are not really good or bad. We put the value of good on positive and bad and negative, but they just are what they are. They're just exaltations and detriments. And detriments aren't bad.
So it's exalted in Pluto and detrimented in Earth.
Yeah. So
Where you like,
is there.
and that's
So-
where really the ego gets fired
So
up.
like
and
nobody has the
it's like,
exaltation.
I know what's right.
The
Fuck all of
exaltation
you.
happens once every 200 years. And the detriment happens every year.
Yeah.
And what's the detriment?
Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other 26, the taming power of the great. This is the gate of the egoist. It is the gate of the trickster. With the 44th gate, this gate is a specific gate of memory. This is the memory that can be manipulated. It is important to remember that the heart center is not aware. The manipulation of memory is inborn and mechanic.
Yeah, so let's just stop on this for a minute. It's in the ego center. The ego is not an awareness center.
Yeah.
So these people, like, and I have this, and you have this, we can, like, misremember things to suit our egos. Like, oh, no, I never said that. I would never say that.
never say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also funny because when I get around people with it, I do that too.
Yeah, well, we condition you. We
And I'm like, yeah, I like totally did this thing and it was great. Like,
It's the gate of the bullshit. That's what I'm saying. You give someone advice, honestly, tell them the second thing you think of. The first thing is going to be what they want to hear.
Here's a nice quote. Fools are liars and prophets too, for they can never know if what they say is true. They just have to wait and see. Every gate in design is by its nature dualistic. From the mouth of the great liar can also come great truth. This is the gate of the ego's strength. This channel forms one of the main health networks in the body. The 26th gate is the gate of the thymus gland, where our immune system is developed during our prenatal phase. It is the only direct connection between the ego and the spleen, and thus can cleanse the ego and how its memory is applied. And the sixth line, the exaltation is the sun, the strong ego whose influence is justified by the correctness of its actions. And the detriment is the moon, the expression of the ego as a role whose influence is symbolic and lacks authority. And so they really kind of like flippy-flop.
And there's way more detriment than exaltation.
Yeah.
Because the detriment happens every month, and the
Right,
exaltation
and
happens once a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, and the last one we have is the 4521. And would you like to read it?
Yeah, actually, I have that channel.
You have that. You do have that channel. So this is one of the things. So anyone? Oh my God, no, I do remember you have that. So something I do in my own head. Gate 45 and this channel is the gate of the tribal leader. And anytime I meet someone at the gate 45, I try to give them the best parking spot. I try to give them the best seat. I try to show them respect as I would show a tribal elder. And I always know. I literally they carry an aura of deserving respect for knowing kind of the just, it's like the just ruler in the I Ching. It's like knowing what is the just way to oversee the resources of the tribe. And it really is the tribal leader. We can think of the 21, the other half of it, as like the young hunter or the hunts person who is hunting on the land owned by the king. And they strike a bond. And the hunter says, I'm going to hunt and I'm going to give you some of what I hunt. Or the farmer who says, I'm going to pay the tithes and give you some of the crop. And the 45 is not going to take advantage of that because the 45 is, again, it's about fairness. The tribe is not unfair. It might have its own definition of fairness. Collective logic people are going to say there's no technical way that you can actually prove that it's fair or whatever. There's no logical proof of fairness. But
what is this? 45?
This is the 4521 from the throat to the ego. And this is also...
The money line? The power?
Yes, the money line. It is the money line. And what's funny is people who have this, they can make some money, but a lot of times they just end up dealing with money shit, dealing with other deals. My dad has this. He spends most of his life helping others figure out stuff with money. I roped him into all the money stuff trying to get this house. People who have this end up getting roped into you talk to them and it's not like, oh, I'm making so much money. It's like, I have so much money stress right now. I'm constantly negotiating and dealing with other people's money problems and trying to help them figure out. And, so earlier when I mentioned how, Donald Trump has this line, it's not just that he has, and he also has the 4426. I think we all know, that was pretty obvious. The part of the same circuit, channel of capitalism and the tribal leader. It's also the mob boss, by the way. It's also it's also the mob mafia leader. But you know, it's not all easy. It's not all, you know, it's not all just like, oh, you have this and you're going to make a lot of money. It can also just be dealing with a lot of material shit and being the voice of the tribe that speaks to the haves and the have-nots, that speaks and says, look, we don't have the resources that we need, and we, you know, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there can be a lot of that.
Read here.
Yeah, I would read both of these because this is the gate 21 and this is gate 45.
Okay. All right. The channel of money, a design of materialism. 21, biting through the power. 45, gathering together the expression. Okay, 21, biting through. The channel of money is unique in the body graph. It stands alone as a single channel, self-enclosed unit. It is the only outlet for the two streams of awareness, which determine the nature of the ego, its strength, and its will. In this sense, it rules our tribal life. Biting through is the power for life on the material plane. It is a great conditioning force in the world. To have this gate in your design demands that you control where you live, what you wear, and what you eat. This gate can never afford to have a boss leaning over their shoulder. This is the gate of the hunter-huntress, and it is their ego drive to dominate. If this gate had a voice, it would say, I control. If it is in a situation where it does not control, its power can never be fulfilled. For the 21, if they're not in control of how they make their living, they're always far from success. I've always been a terrible employee. I've never been able to hold a job for more than a few months, and it's a beautiful thing. 45, gathering together, the channel of money. This is the gate of the master mistress, or the king queen is the gate of dominance. All of the gates of the throat have a voice. Here it says, I have. Gathering together is the expression for the entire tribal group, and it is the throat gate of primary action. All of the potential power of three motors focuses through this expression. As a composite definition, the channel of money can be one of the most beneficial. 45 is the gate of the pasha. It says to the 21, the hunter-huntress, I have this land, and I will allow you to hunt on it as you like, but make sure I get the best piece of meat. When the 45 is generous in its authority and recognizes the willful independence of the 21, all is well. More often, the 21 thinks it deserves the best piece, and the 45 wants to tell the hunter how to hunt. The 21 represents the demands of the community of its rulers. The 45 is the key to the harmony of the community. When the ruler can say with honesty, we have, then there is a peace in the tribe. By the way, a practical cure for depression in either 21s or 45s, go shopping.
Yeah.
I do like to buy stuff.
Oh, right.
That's cool.
Oh, is it the other page too? This side?
I just read this one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That was both of them.
That was fun.
All right. Okay, well, I think we covered all of the tribal. Anyone have any tribal questions? Anyone have any other tribal stuff they want to say? That was great. That was so good. I loved it.
So
Anyone? No? Okay. Then let's eat! No, I do have food, actually, but yeah. Okay. All right.
You don't have it?
No, I do. I do. Spring rolls and rice and some other stuff. So, okay.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you all. Let's hear everyone. Everyone who came. Thank you.